In the time of the Age of Turmoil, Antonius Bale III ruled over the city of Qeynos. Antonius had 3 sons as princes, all of whom exemplified the valor of Qeynos. The first was Kyle Antahilus Bale. Born 35 years before his brothers, little about Kyle is known, other than that he apparently met his demise while expanding the might of Qeynos, and, curiously, that his name appears on a list of knowledge vessels created by the Shadowed Men within the Obelisk of Lost Souls. The second was Antonius Bale IV, who ruled Qeynos after his father's death. Antonius was a skilled swordsman and a mighty paladin of the god Karana. Antonius was a popular king, and it was through his leadership and valor in battle that Qeynos triumphed against Varsoon and the Bloodsabers during the War of Plagues. But the third son of Antonius is perhaps the most infamous name in Qeynosian history. Betraying his city to the Bloodsabers, he conspired to overthrow his older brother and install himself as king, while allowing for the free worship of Bertoxulus the Plaguebringer. Ultimately executed for his crimes, he was buried within the crypt of Betrayal and left to rot there for all eternity. This was the captain of Qeynos' guard, Kane Bayle. Although he betrayed Qeynos, Kane was not always an ill-spirited man. Far from it. As a boy, he was kind to the common folk. In the days of Antonius Bale III, the crypt keeper Maglistan used to have to chase the boys out of the crypts, except for that Kane Bayle. Now I know he grew up to be a villain and all, but apparently he was real thoughtful as a boy. Always stopped to chat with the Maglis of his day, bringing in some of his friends to keep her company. He may have ended up wrong, but he was a good boy. Kane grew up as a prince who was charitable to the common folk, and this was only one of several traits that benefited the young prince. Kane was also an excellent swordsman, unrivaled by any, with the exceptions of his older brother Antonius and Antonius' good friend Eben Stromberg. It is no wonder then that Kane received the prestigious position of captain of the Qeynos Guard. Kane was an excellent commander, and it was under his leadership that the Qeynos Guard became a defensive force strong enough to weather the assaults of the Bloodsabers during the War of Plagues. When Kane reached 33 years of age, he was a distinguished soldier, and a married man. Wedded to Araminda Morallon, the daughter of Lord Morallon, a powerful ally of the Bale family, Kane seemed like he was a happy man. They were betrothed from Araminda's birth, but as time went on, Kane grew to love his wife. Unfortunately, within a year of their wedding, tragedy struck the married couple. Araminda gave birth to a son, but the baby died hours after it was born, killed by sickness. The couple were devastated, and while Araminda herself was sick, Kane slept in a different room. When she recovered, however, Kane did not move back. It was the first sign of deeper troubles within the prince's heart. Regardless of the tragedy, Kane continued to make great strides within the guard. He reformed the guard from a large mass into smaller subunits that could swiftly respond to any reported problems. Kane's fellow officers often visited the couple's home, and Araminda herself would volunteer at an infirmary within the city. The couple were dedicated to Qeynos, though it was difficult to say whether the same dedication applied to their relationship. Rumors spread of Kane spending time with other women. Amongst these women was Mylea Clothspinner, another good friend of Antonius. Araminda, for her part, dismissed the rumors, steadfastly believing that Kane was a loyal husband. Infidelity, however, was not the only thing plaguing Kane. Dark things lingered in Kane's heart. He secretly desired the throne of Qeynos, a birthright that belonged to his older brother Antonius. Antonius, the man who was Kane's better in every way. Kane resented this fact and his brother, and while he wanted the crown, his loyalty to Qeynos took precedence, and he buried these thoughts deep inside himself. But Kane soon strayed down a darker path. Kane had discovered the teachings of Bertoxulus, the Plaguebringer. Perhaps he was searching for answers about his son's death. Bertoxulus is associated with disease, after all. Or perhaps he sought the means to grant him enough power to take the throne. Whatever the reason, Kane Bayle was ensnared by the power Bertoxulus offered. Kane continued to serve his city as the War of Plagues raged, while in secret he eagerly searched for more information on the Plaguebringer. Kane's fall was complete when he came into contact with a member of the Bloodsaber cult, followers of Bertoxulus. His contact, a female singer who often seduced members of the Qeynos Guard, seduced him in turn, and explained to him the teachings of Bertoxulus, and Kane Bayle, utterly entranced, fell into the fold of the Bloodsabers. Kane was indispensably valuable to the cult. He was a skilled fighter, a seasoned commander, and as a member of the Bale family line, he had strong connections. The Bloodsabers could not afford to lose him, and so they did everything to keep him in their embrace. Kane, for his part, continued his infidelities, delighting in the women of the Bloodsabers. But Kane was no fool. He understood the Bloodsabers' intentions perfectly. He was not Bartoxius' puppet, but his own master. Just as in the Guard, Kane gained considerable influence amongst the Bloodsabers. Kane was a born leader, and he intended to use the Bloodsabers just as they used him to seize the throne for himself. It was during one of Kane's infidelities of a Bloodsaber woman that he was observed by Mylea Clothspinner. Mylea had grown suspicious of Kane. Though they were secret lovers, she suspected his absences as time spent with other women. Rumors had also begun to fly not only of Kane's infidelity, but also his toying with the worship of Bartoxius. Mylea, like Araminda, did not believe the rumors about Kane. Suspecting, however, that she had a romantic rival, Mylea followed Kane one night and discovered him with the Bloodsaber woman. She eavesdropped on the conversation unseen, and when the two had separated, Mylea arrested and captured the woman. She questioned the Bloodsaber. The information that Mylea learned from her revealed the full extent of Kane's betrayal. Armed with this information, Mylea immediately went to her superiors and informed them of Kane's treachery. Mylea's accusations, however, were cast aside as the jealousy of a lover. After all, how could the captain of the guard himself and a member of the royal family stoop so low? But information from independent sources began to flood in. News that Kane had reassigned vital reinforcements to clean details, but that he had ignored requests entirely. When the War of Plagues had concluded and the Bloodsabers had been routed, the officers of the Qeynos Guard could ignore the suspicions surrounding Kane no longer. Kane was arrested and put on trial. The trial of Kane Bayle was one of the most momentous events in Qeynosian history, and also the most two-sided. Numerous witnesses were brought forth, but as each one accused Kane, another stalwartly defended him. Mylea was amongst the witnesses who accused Kane, citing the information that she had obtained from the captured Bloodsaber. Kane would receive no words of kindness from his former lover. She instead called for him to be sentenced as guilty of treason, punishable by death. Another one of the witnesses who spoke against Kane was Margetta Landon, Kane's chief of intelligence during the War of Plagues. Before the war, my office was directly across from his, and I updated him directly when circumstances required. As the war became inevitable, however, Captain Bale moved my office somewhat further down the corridor. That does not mean that he did not have access to me or to the information gathered by our scouts immediately upon request. He just stopped asking for it. He didn't want to know. Considerable evidence had been levied against him, but Kane was not without defenders. General Wenby, a childhood friend of Kane, spoke in his defense. He swore to the court that Kane was innocent, and that must be the work of a Bloodsaber spy to remove Kane Bayle. Wenby, with an emotional outburst declaring that someone was attempting to murder his captain and friend, was evicted from the courtroom. Kane was also defended by another member of the guard, Isaac Elrond. Isaac served under Avegelus Kildrain, and he was part of the unit ambushed by the Bloodsabers in the catacombs. He argued that Kane's decisions regarding his unit were for the city's defense, not tactical decisions that favored the Bloodsabers. Most touching of all was the tearful pleas of Kane's own mother, Lynette Bale, begging the court to allow the Bale family to take custody of Kane. Lynette refused to believe her son capable of such treachery, and argued that the truth was unknowable. She accused the court of using Kane as a scapegoat for the losses incurred during the War of Plagues, and asked that they remember Kane's great deeds. Once all testimonies had been heard, the court delivered its ruling. Kane Bayle was found guilty of treason and sentenced to be executed. The sentence utterly destroyed both Kane's mother and his wife Araminda. His father and brother, on the other hand, remained stoic. Kane had betrayed their city and was no family of theirs. Araminda struggled with what to believe. Was Kane innocent, an adulterer, a traitor? Unable to bear the grief, Araminda flung herself from her window on the dawn of Kane's execution, joining her husband in death. Kane Bayle was executed for his crimes and buried in the crypt of Betrayal, as were the bodies of slain and executed Bloodsabers. There he would rest for all eternity, not as a Bale, but as a lowly traitor. Kane Bayle's story may very well end there, and as far as most Qeynosians are concerned, it does. However, there are pieces of evidence in Kane's story that suggest something more complex. Firstly, why does the captured Bloodsaber tell Mylea Clothspinner that Kane is aligned with the Bloodsabers? It was not out of fear of death. Bloodsabers believed they would be rewarded by the Plaguebringer's gift of undeath. And if Kane truly was a Bloodsaber himself, why compromise such an important asset? The Bloodsabers had plenty of traitors within their ranks, which could easily allow them to gain the information they needed. Was Kane then named to eliminate a powerful commander of the Qeynos Guard? The motives of his Bloodsaber are unclear, however she does leave behind a journal that we slowly recover the pages of. We nearly had won that day. With the help of our leader, Kane Bayle, we were positioned beneath the city. He gave us advance warning of battle plans and suggested routes we might take to ease our passage through the city's armies. The city acclaimed his leadership. Little did they know then where his allegiance lay. Our leader, Kane Bayle. The passage implies that Kane commanded all of the Bloodsabers, but historical accounts of the War of Plague suggest that Varsoon the Undying was their leader. Perhaps it merely names Kane as a commander of the unit, but the passage is nonetheless curious. There was also the matter that so many believed in Kane's innocence. Araminda Bale, General Wemby, Isaac Elrond, all of these refused to believe the rumors about Kane's affiliations. Araminda outright calls them lies in her journal. Kane could not disgrace my family as well as his by seeking to belittle some of these women claim. They lie, though it appears that their lies are more persuasive than mine. Kane's mother Lynette incidentally said something similar during Kane's trial. I beg this court to spare my son's life. You cannot know the truth, not with so many of our youth slain and unburied on the battlefield. How can you use the testimony of a handful of simpletons to condemn the captain of the guard to death? Was his judgment flawed? Perhaps. You cannot say that all your own actions are without fault when reviewed after the need for quick decisions is past. Do not let your desire for vengeance cause you to place the blame and hurt of all our losses on the shoulders of a few. You say he secretly plans with the Bloodsabers, our enemies, yet can offer no clear evidence beyond the word of a jilted lover. Do not send my son to the executioner's block for a failed romance. I beseech you, remember all that he has done for Qeynos and let the family of Kane Bayle decide his fate, not an impersonal court of law. Lies and deceptions. Both Lynette and Araminda believed that those were the tools that brought Kane down. General Wemby claimed that the Bloodsabers were trying to assassinate Kane through his execution, and it would certainly be effective if this was indeed their plan. Most interesting of all is Isaac Elrond's account, for he is the only witness to offer counter-evidence to the testimonies of Margetta and Mylia. During the war, our unit was assigned to patrol the catacombs to prevent the undead from rising beneath the city and taking us unawares. This assignment clearly shows that Captain Bale was trying to protect us at all costs. Our scouts reported increased undead activity beneath the city, and Captain Keldrain devised a plan to stop them. There's some tunnels down there that you can use to cut off your enemy's escape routes. Our plan was to use these routes to our advantage. Captain Bale approved of the plan, so you can't say he was trying to hurt the city. We were not successful, though. Most of the unit, including all the officers, were outflanked by the same maneuver we had planned to use. When we got to the tunnels, they were already full of the Bloodsabers, but you can't blame that on Captain Bale. Isaac's testimony lines up with official history of the War of Plagues, as well as Mylia's testimony. Kane Bayle did indeed assign soldiers to the catacombs beneath Qeynos in the event of a Bloodsaber attack from below. Was this done to avert suspicion of treachery? Or did Kane truly intend to stop the Bloodsabers' incursions? Kane also approved of Keldrain's plan, perhaps intending for him to die, perhaps hoping the Bloodsabers would be excised from the catacombs. Regardless, Isaac Elrond is right about one thing for certain. Kane Bayle is not the one to blame for Keldrain's ambush. That betrayal was done by Keldrain's Lieutenant Vargon. We may never know the full truth regarding Kane Bayle's true allegiance. Kane Bayle lay undisturbed within the crypt of Betrayal for centuries, surviving both the rending and the shattering, until the Bloodsabers, hidden within the catacombs, discover his crypt. You first hear of the matter when Westland Brookshadow sends you to retrieve an ancient tome called the Journal of Elcair. As you are retrieving it, you are ambushed by Bloodsabers who declare that they will use the tome to restore their greatest leader. After some time spent assisting the Qeynos Guard, you return to Westland, who informs you that the great leader that the Bloodsabers are trying to raise is Kane Bayle. Indeed, once you obtain the key to the Crypt of Betrayal, you observe an ongoing ritual surrounding his body, but fortunately stop it just in time. Kane Bayle remains dead, and the Bloodsabers' plans are foiled.